So these are some illustrations of Aboriginal Americans made in the early 1800s or late 1700s. Okay. Now, what's very important to understand here is it shows the two types of Indigenous Americans. So there's two types, guys. There is the kind that they show you in school, and then there's the type that they do not show you in school. This stuff is very simple. So when you hear Black Americans saying, I'm Indigenous American, stop laughing at them. Stop telling them that they just hate Africa and that they hate their culture and all this other stuff. Stop saying that, because there's truth behind it and we have the sources to prove it. This is a source, guys. I'm not even going to act like I can pronounce the name of this book, but it's an Austrian book written in the late 1700s, published in the mid 1800s. You can buy it off Amazon. It's only $28. But you can also travel to the John Carter Brown Library in Rhode Island, and you can read the book there. In case you guys don't know, this is the most accredited library in all the United States for old documents. Caption is Figure 190 and 191, Iroquois Chief and Virginia Indians. Figure 192 and 193, Canadian and Honduran Indians. Description: Figure 190, Iroquois leader holding a knife and wearing a cloak over European clothing. He also wears moccasins and feathered headdress. Figure 191, Native Americans of Virginia, includes tattoos and deerskin garments. Figure 192, Native American man and woman of Canada wearing deerskins. Figure 193, Native American from Honduras holding a spear and wicker shield. Source creator Wilhelm Gottlieb Tobias, 1755 to 1811. Source title, I'm not even going to act like I can pronounce that. So he wasn't American, okay? He wasn't even American, but there was a lot of explorers that came to this continent to describe the peoples. Source place of publication, Vienna. Vienna is in Austria. So again, other countries are always going to be more honest than America. That's one thing you have to understand. When you go into those other countries, they'll tell you straight up, you're an American Indian. When you step foot back on American soil, they're gonna lie to you and tell you, oh, you're African, you're African, you're African, oh, you're African American. That's all they're gonna tell you. But when you go to other countries, if you look in Europe and you go to the old churches in Europe, where the artwork in old churches, and in those paintings, it shows Indigenous Americans holding crosses and Bibles in their hands, and they look like Negroes. In those churches in Europe, there's statues of American Indians in Europe, and they look like Negroes. There was Negroes all around the world. There's Negroes in the Pacific Islanders. Have you seen a Samoan? Have you seen some Hawaiian people? Have you seen Fiji Islanders? Have you guys seen Papua New Guineans? Have you guys seen some of the people of Thailand, some of the people of even southern Vietnam? Have you seen, who am I missing? People of the Solomon Islands. Have you guys seen some people who live in India? There are Negroes literally everywhere. So why are we going to sit up here and act like there were none in the Americas? Like, can you guys be more realistic? Be realistic. If we're being realistic, statistically speaking, there should have been Negroes in the Americas, because there were Negroes everywhere else. Why would there not be any in the Americas? Why are we going to sit up here and act like the Americas was just void of Negroes until the European brought them over there, when no other continent on the planet was void of Negroes? So America is the only continent that was void of Negroes. But that's what the American education system will teach you. Go to these other countries and you'll see the truth. So we have like a very pale complexion Indian, Iroquois. Now we got to understand, though, that they did not all look like that. Not all Iroquois people were white, because the Iroquois is not it wasn't really a genetic group of people. It was a confederacy of 5 tribes. It had 50 chiefs. So it was a whole bunch of little groups. But the tribes, the nations, were the Mohawk, the Oneida, the Onondaga, the Cayuga, the Seneca, and the Tuscarora. Now, the Seneca and the Tuscarora Indians were Negro, period, point blank. The other ones were like a mix of Siberian, Negro, and Roman Greco-Roman. And we can the DNA evidence shows that there's Greco-Roman DNA in the eastern woodland Native Americans, because they came over and they was making dealings with the Americas for years. So anyway, yeah, so there was, not all the Iroquois look the same. It was a confederacy. Okay, they had to unite themselves. Here's the Virginia Indians. They are dark complected but still pale in comparison to the ones we see at the bottom. But this is just one tribe. There were actually some Virginia Indians that were Negroid just like this, and I can show you other sources. The Indians of the Carolinas they described them as looking like Africans. Okay, and we know that the Carolinas is right next to Virginia, so there were many different tribes just like speckled in North America, and they all had a different look to them because they were not a genetically homogenous people. I'm tired of people thinking that the Americas was just genetically homogenous and everybody there was the same exact genetic structure, when that's not true. Okay, every continent is going to have genetic diversity. Why do you think every Native American looks the same from the tip of Alaska to the tip of Chile? It doesn't work like that. That's not true. Now anyway, so at the bottom, we have figure 192 and 193. This is the Canadian Indians. We talked about the Canadian Indians in my last video about the indigenous people. And as you can see, it bears witness again that the Canadian Indians were Negro, okay? And you can say, well, Negroes only live in the heat of Africa. No, Negroes can live in any environment. It doesn't matter. And here we have the Indians of Honduras, which is Central America. This is figure 193. So figure 192 and 193, Canadian and Honduran Indians. So we got Negroes in the very north in Canada. We got Negroes in Central America. And in between that, we got these other races. So when people say that they're Native American, just because they look African doesn't mean they're lying or hate their culture. There's Native Americans that look like all races. You got Native Americans that look like they're Asian, Native Americans that look like they're white, Native Americans that look like they're African. People have to understand that this nation here was a home of multiple empires, multiple grand kingdoms, okay? Stop thinking they all were the same color and they all had the same physical attributes, when that's just not true.